But it's infiltrated everything.
I kept seeing him on TikTok for like the last probably year, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, I saw another TikTok of someone going, "Girls, go up to your guy and go, 'What's up, brother?' and see what they do."
Yeah.
And every guy is responding.
Yeah,
with it.
my brain would shortwire had that happen to me. But nonetheless, good to be with you. Jam-packed weekend, Hunter. I was at a wedding Friday in Green Bay. Went to the Brewer game in Milwaukee Saturday. Went to Mazamanie. Never been there before. Yesterday for WrestleMania night 2. So I've been all over the state. I'm excited to be here. Lots to get into. National championship game tonight between top seeded UConn, number 1 seed Purdue. Kind of the matchup we've been waiting for all year long. The battle of the Titans. I still think UConn wins big. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. Jack Gohlke from Oakland, Pewaukee legend. He will join us in about 15 minutes to talk the national championship game. Jack Gohlke single-handedly ended the John Calipari era at Kentucky. So we got to get his thoughts on that as Cal headed to Arkansas after Eric Musselman leaves for USC. So Jack Gohlke will join us for a couple of minutes at 12:45. Looking forward to catching up with him after what was a terrific tournament for him. Obviously, huge rise, a bunch of NIL deals, which we're all big fans of, right? So I'm excited to pick his brain and some of that stuff from Pewaukee. I had a thought over the weekend in relation to the Green Bay Packers and how we view last year as we get ready for a season that will include expectations, right? A team that is expected to compete in the NFC North, a team that is expected to compete in the NFC, and should be a bona fide playoff team. So how should we view last year? Was it a rebuild? Was it a retool? I know those were words we threw a lot around last year, and I kind of am looking at that a little bit different after some of the moves the Houston Texans have made. Shout out Sketch. So we will get into that after Jack Gohlke joins us. And I also want to touch on the Milwaukee Bucks a bit later, as things not good for the Milwaukee Bucks. So we will dive into all that. Want to welcome our audience on ESPN Milwaukee for the first time today. We will be doing this now every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, beginning at 12:30 on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube channel. Shout out to Joshie DiMaggio running the show for us in Milwaukee. Happy to have him and excited to have him a part of our team going forward as we join the ESPN Milwaukee family. So let's start with Caitlin Clark in the national championship game that was played on the women's side yesterday, likely going to break the record that was broken on Friday. Was about, what was it, 15 million? I think I saw the most watched basketball game in the history of ESPN on Friday. In the semifinal between Iowa and UConn. And then I imagine yesterday will smash that record as South Carolina completes the perfect season. They beat Iowa in the national championship game. Great basketball game. South Carolina pulls away at the end. Caitlin Clark obviously falls in her final collegiate game. She will be the number 1 overall pick a week from today in the WNBA draft to the Indiana Fever. And she took 28 shots, which I didn't even realize, right? Like I watching that and watching some of it back, I just wanted her to keep shooting because she's so damn entertaining. She is, in terms of the wheelhouse she operates in, right? Like, so collegiate women's basketball, she's the most entertaining player I've ever watched. And it's somebody I just want to shoot every shot. She's so outstanding. But South Carolina had a great game plan against her, as did UConn on Friday night. I mean, it's hard to slow down Caitlin Clark. She's still at 30 last night, but it's just not enough to get Iowa over the top. But, I mean, she will be remembered as, if not the greatest, one of the greatest college basketball players, bar none, of all time. So that was a really, really, really fun game and a really fun run for Caitlin Clark, who's going to go to the WNBA and elevate them to the next level coming up next season, but in a couple of months with the WNBA season kicking up. Hunter, did you watch the game yesterday? Did you watch the Final Four Friday? What do you make of Caitlin Clark? Obviously, we saw Dawn Staley, the head coach of South Carolina, do something you don't see done really ever, which is, while accepting the championship trophy and celebrating her team's perfect season, undefeated, 38-0, thanking Caitlin Clark for elevating the game. I mean, that's how much of an impact she had on women's college basketball, and she had everybody watching. Not only this season, but last season as well. It feels like for the second year in a row, the women's NCAA tournament, in terms of the level of players, the notoriety, the popularity, outshine the men's tournament, which will cap off its season tonight. But Dawn Staley thanking Caitlin Clark for all she did for women's basketball. Really cool moment, something you really never see in sports.
Yeah, Dawn Staley's awesome.
Yeah, she
like
is.
I just loved that she did that. Sunday I didn't really watch a whole lot of. I was kind of going in and out of the game. I had it up on my phone, and that just kind of got distracted with other stuff. I was all in on the game against UConn, and that was such a good game. And I'm just disappointed that the conversation around that game had to be the illegal screen, which was very clearly an illegal screen.
Yeah, I think the issue people had with it was it was only called one other time?
3 times in that game.
3 times total.
Yeah,
and that
so-
was the third.
Yeah, they
So,
were
okay.
calling it consistently throughout the game.
I'm with you. I mean, I think it was clearly an illegal screen, but
Yeah, she threw her elbows out and her feet were
her feet
outside
were
of her
moving.
shoulders.
No,
Like,
it was
come
the
on.
right call. But I think for people that are maybe just getting into women's basketball, they wanted a last shot opportunity, right? And I understand that take too, but meh.
I mean, they had their opportunity, but their teammate couldn't set the right screen.
as we
That's what it drives me crazy that people want to make that about that be the conversation around the game, not the fact that we saw an incredible Final Four game.
Oh, yeah, we did. And I think when you look at it, and we talked about it last week prior to the Final Four, you wanted in the national championship game Sunday the best player versus the best team, and you got that. 38-0, what ended up being 38-0 South Carolina against Caitlin Clark, and you got it. You had an amazing Caitlin Clark game. Maybe not her best shooting performance in terms of efficiency, but she was awesome, as she always is, and South Carolina is just an unbelievable game, or unbelievable team, excuse me. So it was really fun. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I enjoyed the hell out of the run in the whole tournament, and obviously the Caitlin Clark hype and excitement was worth it, and I hope that leads to the WNBA when she gets drafted number 1 overall a week from today. I hope people watch that more than they ever have, because I think she's that much of an unbelievable talent and can raise a tide unlike anybody else. So looking forward to seeing how that shakes out. But really fun one there. National championship game tonight on the men's side of things as UConn takes on Purdue. It's like I said at the top, I think it's the game we've all been waiting for all year. Purdue, UConn, probably the best 2 teams all year long. Houston, obviously, in the conversation as well. But it seems like really early on in this season, these 2 teams set themselves apart, maybe with Houston in the group. I've said it all season long. I've said it all tournament long. I will say it again. Nobody's touching UConn. They're just that damn good. 6.5-point favorites, according to ESPN, bet tonight against Purdue. They haven't seen anybody like Zach Edey, which will make for an intriguing matchup here in the tournament. But they've just beaten the brakes off everybody on the run here to the national title game in search of back-to-back titles, right? The trend bucked itself on Saturday of them winning every game by 25+. They only beat Alabama by 14, but they still covered the 11.5-point spread that they were favored by. So that was, by the way, those Final Four games, Hunter, on the men's side, just not very exciting, right?
No.
And DJ Burns Jr., who's going to be the star of One Shining Moment tonight when that airs at the end of the national championship game. Between DJ Burns, Jack Gohlke, UConn, and Zach Edey, that will make up 75% of One Shining Moment. But DJ Burns Jr., meh. Also, but by the way, I saw that Burns, after the loss to Purdue, was like all smiles, and he was talking about how he was chirping at Zach Edey during the game, and then he kept getting asked questions, was getting peppered with questions about going to the NFL. So I think you and I have spoken this into existence. We've manifested DJ Burns Jr. will be the Packers' left tackle next season. I think we've made it happen.
What round do you think he would go in?
He's not getting drafted.
You don't think somebody takes a 7th round? If he's like, yeah, I want to try and go to the NFL, you're not using a 7th round pick on him? Like, what does it hurt? Unless you're striking gold with Brock Purdy.
Right.
Like, you're not, like, whatever.
But you want a proven commodity if you're using a draft pick on it, right? Because that also dictates money you're spending. DJ Burns might get an opportunity. I would be super freaking pumped if DJ Burns got an opportunity in the NFL. We'll see what happens with basketball, because I imagine it's probably an overseas thing for DJ Burns. I don't think he's cut out for the NBA, but he was exactly what you love in March and I guess early April for the Final Four. But he, in the NFL, would be the coolest story we've seen in a minute, because he's just this as I dubbed him, the big MFer from NC State, who goes on this ridiculous run as a Cinderella double-digit seed to the Final Four, ultimately got knocked out by a bigger MFer in Zach Edey, and maybe that can translate to the NFL. So I don't know. I would love to see an NFL team take a shot on DJ Burns Jr., who didn't have a great game in the Final Four. But national championship game tonight, Houston, Purdue. Zach Edey will get his. UConn will get theirs. I think they complete the back-to-back championship run because that's just the trajectory they've been on all season long. They've taken their bumps, of course, unlike South Carolina on the women's side. But they lost early in the season to a good Kansas team. They lost on the road, got smacked on the road at Seton Hall, and they got smacked on the road at Creighton, who was a good team and alive late in the tournament. So overall, I don't know how a team defends UConn, who can score anybody out of the gym. They run this unbelievable offense, and they're I don't know. I'm very intrigued to see if anybody can, or if Purdue can even compete. Like, it might be close at half. I think UConn runs them out of the gym. What did I say? 6.5, I think, according to ESPN Bet as it stands right now. What they're I think they cover again. They win by at least 10 points, and they win back-to-back national championships. That's the way I view it going. So we will see. We'll get some more insight on that right now as we go to the phone lines. A legend from Pewaukee, Wisconsin, 2018 grad. A legend of Hillsdale. And now a legend in March Madness. Going to be the star of One Shining Moment tonight. I'm calling my shot on that. From Oakland University, Jack Gohlke joins us now on Mr. Irrelevant. Jack, my man, it's been a couple of quiet weeks for you. How you hanging in there?
Yeah, not much going on lately. No, it's been good. Just got back from the Final Four, which was a lot of fun, and just kind of trying to soak up everything that's going on. And I appreciate you guys having me on today.
Yeah, appreciate you taking the time, my man. And I view it this way, because you said you're on your way back from the Final Four. I don't know if you have obligations or something, but you're like the star of March Madness. They couldn't get you into the national championship game. What's the story there, if I'm not digging in too deep?
No. So I had some obligations down there to do, and had a lot of fun. I was there, but I could have gone if I wanted to. But to be honest, I'm as soon as we were out, I was it kind of hurts to watch the games. It's like, I wish we were in that position. So I didn't really necessarily want to stay and watch the championship.
No, that's fair. That's the competitive mindset. But to see you compete in this hot shots thing over the weekend, which you guys crushed. Jack, the first shot you had to make was a 2-pointer. You didn't make a lot of those this season. I think it was 8 total. First off, what's the story with the lack of 2-point shots? And secondly, how fun was this experience at Grand Canyon University over the weekend, winning the Davis Hot Chicken Hot Shot Challenge?
It all of his film and some of the players he had in the past who played my style, and he's had guys in the past he had a guy, Max Hooper, who shot over 250 threes in the season and didn't take a single two. So
Whoa.
He's had that type of player before, and people to fit that mold. So he kind of just pitched it to me and said, I know you've taken twos in your previous stops of your careers, whether it's mid-range jumpers or layups, whatever the case may be. But he thought the most efficient usage of me would be to stay behind the arc and if I'm faking on a three, to take a side dribble and shoot another three instead of going inside the arc. So that's kind of how it came about. And man, this weekend was a ton of fun. Grand Canyon had for us at that event, and like you said, I had to take a little bit in that question, and I went over to Coach Campy before I took it, and I asked him, I was like, how many attempts do you think it's going to take me to make this? And he said, it's probably going to be 3 or 4 before you unfoot. I made it on the first try, and we were go.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Jack Gohlke with us here on Mr. Irrelevant. on ESPN Wisconsin. And Jack, I just want to go back to that Kentucky game. And obviously some big news out of there, which we'll get to in a second, coming out last night. But that Kentucky game, you come off the bench, you can't miss. You ultimately make 10 threes, creating and ultimately pulling off the biggest upset in round one of the NCAA tournament. As the couple shots started falling for you in the first half, was the mindset just, I got to keep shooting if we want to win this thing against a really good Kentucky team? That's the biggest stage, obviously, I assume you've ever been on in your career, right? You're playing the number 3 seed in Kentucky, and these shots just keep falling for you. What's the mindset, and when did you realize, holy crap, we're actually going to pull this thing off?
I've said it's been pretty much the same the whole season, and the biggest thing that we said going into the game is we just got our preparation and with our because that's that point, and when you start changing things up in moments, that's when I think teams start to falter. So mindset was this certain teams throughout the season who might have guarded me, and then I will get up. But
we lose them? We got him back now. Sorry, Jack. We lost you there for a minute. Keep going.
Oh, sorry. I was a decent job of going.
All right, we're going to try to reconnect with Jack, who I know he's dry. I mentioned that at the top, so we'll try to reconnect with him momentarily. Jack Gohlke from Oakland, our guest here on Mr. Irrelevant. And look, he's talking about obviously that Kentucky win there, and we'll get to the news with him as we get back with him on John Calipari. Getting out of Kentucky. I need to ask Jack, does he take credit for ending that run? Because obviously a legendary run for Calipari at Kentucky. And Jack Gohlke breaks an NCAA record in his final game at Kentucky. So we'll get back to that here as we try to reconnect. I mean, he's in Arizona. I assume he's driving back to either Michigan or Wisconsin. So I don't know what the cell reception is. I've never made that drive before. So we will find out here in a second as Tiny Hands gets to work back there in the control room behind me. We'll give it another shot, Jack. We got you back. Like I was just mentioning, I've never made the drive from Arizona to either Michigan or Wisconsin, wherever you're driving back to. So I imagine we might have some spotty cell connection somewhere in the middle there. But back to the Kentucky game. You were mentioning the mindset as you guys ultimately pulled off that upset.
Yeah. So when I realized, like, hey, I'm gonna get some free looks. I'm gonna get, and I can make a big impact on it, and hopefully kind of be a big part in why my team wins, and kept going forward and kept that mindset throughout the whole game. And once they started changing their coverage and starting to pay more attention to me, the time to kind of distract and take all the attention and let my other teammates thrive at that point, whether it's Trey or Chris or DQ and those guys. So obviously it's such a team game, and guys hot, it makes everything easier for everybody else started scoring.
Jack Gohlke with us here on ESPN Wisconsin. Jack, I mentioned the news when you joined us before. Coach Calipari out at Kentucky. He heads to Arkansas to take over for Eric Musselman. So I'm just going to ask you point blank. You take credit for ending the Calipari era in Kentucky, 10 threes against him in his final game? You're taking credit for that?
No, I'm definitely not taking credit for that. He could have been back if he wanted to, and I think he saw a great opportunity at Arkansas, and the collective that they'll have at Arkansas and the amount of resources available to him. So I think he just saw a fresh start and a great opportunity there. It has been funny to see all the memes and all that good stuff on the internet, though.
No doubt about that, man. You're a legend. You're gonna, like I said, you're going to be the highlight of one shining moment tonight. Speaking of opportunities, right? The way the NIL era has helped you over the course of the last month or so. I even saw at one point you used the hashtag I love NIL on Twitter, given all the opportunities you've got. What's in terms of NIL? What's the last month been like for you? Because I imagine it's created some opportunities for you that weren't there previously in your first and only year at Oakland.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been awesome. I feel very lucky to be able to take advantage of a situation like this with the NIL, and it's definitely been crazy. There's been so many things kind of thrown at me and offered to me, but just trying to sort through it all. And I've had some good help in kind of looking at those deals and deciding what's good for me, what's not good for me, which ones are going to last, and things like that. So just trying to evaluate and take advantage of the moment, because something like this doesn't come around all the time, and it doesn't last forever as well.
So what's next for you, Jack? Obviously, I know you're getting your master's degree at Oakland after your 4-year accounting degree at Hillsdale. What's next after that? What's coming up for Jack Gohlke?
Yeah, so I just signed an agent about a week ago, and I'm going to try to play pro this upcoming year, and hopefully for a good amount of years down the line. So I'll be heading down to Dallas this summer to train and get ready for a big season wherever I end up. I'm not exactly sure where that'll be, but I'll be very busy this summer, whether it's workouts, hopefully some summer league action in Vegas and all that good stuff. And then maybe I'll end up in Europe or stay stateside. But I definitely want to keep playing basketball. The game's been awesome to me and blessed me with a lot of things. So I want to try to keep riding that wave.
No doubt about it, and you certainly have capitalized thus far. Looking forward to seeing what's up next for you. I want to go back after leaving Hillsdale last year and ultimately ending up at Oakland. You're a Pewaukee guy. You're from Wisconsin. There's 2 schools in the Horizon League in Wisconsin: UW Green Bay, UW Milwaukee. Not far from home for you. What was the recruitment like from D2 Hillsdale to getting to that Division I level this year? Were there offers from the hometown schools in Green Bay and Milwaukee, or was Oakland really the one that targeted and ultimately the reason you ended up? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, I had a couple other offers besides Oakland, but no other offers in the Horizon League. I didn't really hear at all from Green Bay or Milwaukee. So that was kind of just, some added motivation when I got to play those teams this year, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, Oakland was a great fit for me, and I don't think I would have gone anywhere else, but it would have been nice to get a little attention from them.
I understand that. I mean, we all have chips on our shoulder, whether that be as a great 3-point shooter or as a radio and podcast host or whatever, right? Like, we all have chips on our shoulder one way or another, right? So I feel you on that. Looking at Caitlin Clark, I saw there was a sign in the crowd at the national championship game yesterday, Jack, that said Jack Gohlke wishes he was Caitlin Clark. Is that true?
I don't wish I was Caitlin Clark, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for her game, and I know she's a beast. So
she was. Did you catch any of that national championship game between perfect South Carolina and Iowa? And what do you make of that side of that side of the tournament, the women's side, which was a terrific product over the weekend?
Yeah, it was. I watched a little bit of the LSU game, and then did catch some of the game yesterday. And man, it's awesome to see the amount of exposure and attention that the women's games get in these days, especially in college, just because obviously they put in just as much work as we do, and to see the stage that they get to play on and how much attention Caitlin Clark especially brings to the game is really cool, and it's much deserved for her. I think everyone's excited to see kind of what happens with her and going pro, and maybe she can kind of lift up the WNBA as much as she has the college game.
No doubt. I said that right before you jumped on with us. I hope that's the case as well. On the men's side, I know you mentioned, I don't know if you're going to be watching tonight. UConn looking for back-to-back titles. Purdue obviously looking to give them the challenge tonight in the national championship game. Will you be watching? Do you have a rooting interest, or is this I wish we were still playing. I ain't paying attention to this. What's the mindset of there?
I probably will watch, but I don't really have a rooting interest. I think I'm going to go with UConn, but they've just been so dominant the last 11 tournament games they've played, and just winning all of them with relative ease, and it's been so impressive to watch them play. And obviously the matchup between the two bigs will be exciting to watch, but the depth that UConn has and the amount of good talented players they have is really impressive. So I'll be tuned in tonight. I was more so I was more so avoiding watching NC State in
That's
particular. Anytime they were playing, I did not want to see anything going on.
Well, I feel that, and you know, it was cool to see two double-digit seeds match up when you guys played. But ultimately, I'm with you. I would have liked if the result was the opposite way. But last thing for you, Jack, before we let you go, and really appreciate you taking the time, my man. I know how busy it's been the last few weeks for you. I keep referencing One Shining Moment because I'm a ginormous nerd. Do you care about that? Are you looking forward to seeing you hitting some shots and your face appear in that montage, or do you just not care about One Shining Moment? Because like I said, I'm a giant nerd when it comes to it. I'm looking forward to seeing some Wisconsin representation in Jack Gohlke in One Shining Moment tonight. Will you be looking forward to that?
I think it's cool to be in the video just because it's in like the history of the tournament, all the videos on YouTube, and get a bunch of views like when you watch or when you're getting ready for the next tournament and things like that. So I think it's cool. But I know that was a huge stage and all that stuff, but in terms of my career, I hope I don't really like the One Shining Moment label to describe it. You know what I mean? I hope that I can keep building memories and moments for my basketball career down the line.
I love that answer. That's a great answer, Jack. Dude, you're the best. Appreciate the time. Congrats on everything, and looking forward to seeing what's next for you. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Great to meet you, and thanks for having me on.
It's Jack Gohlke from Oakland, one of the tournament studs, and I know he said, you know, he doesn't want it to be his One Shining Moment, but I will pump my fist when I see Jack Gohlke pump up on One Shining Moment tonight. Because and Hunter, a few weeks back, and for our Milwaukee audience or anybody new to the show that's watching with us, they didn't see after the first weekend I don't remember how many we made, 7 or 8 predictions of what will show up in One Shining Moment. I'm very much looking forward to going back in that list and checking off how many we got right. We know for a fact Gohlke will be in there. We know for a fact DJ Burns Jr. will be in there. But I'm such a nerd for this stuff, man. What was it? The cotton candy fan? I don't even remember what school. Auburn, was it?
Cotton candy kid from Baylor.
Baylor. That's
just going to town on it.
Yeah, like I'm excited to see if he makes it in. So, do you pay attention as close to that as I do? I don't know if that's an ADD thing for me, but I get real into One Shining Moment every year.
I mean, I love it, and it's just because it's a great song and like it is fun, and then it is, like you mentioned, like going back and watching them on YouTube, like it's fun to get that time capsule of that year's tournament. So that's what I love the most is like, I'm going to go back and watch, you know, the 2007 One Shining Moment so I can see some Joakim Noah highlights mixed in there. Like that's great about it. But I loved what he said there at the end of like, I don't want that to be what encapsulate my career. I've got to imagine it's against somebody somewhere is going to take a chance on him.
Oh, he'll be
playing at the next level.
He'll be in Summer League, right? And you know, if he can continue what he did against Kentucky and knock down some triples, every team's looking for a shooter always. Like it wouldn't hurt the Milwaukee Bucks, who we'll talk about in a second. So we'll see what happens with him. But even if it's Europe, right? Like great college players are playing over there. We just had that special that we talked about with Ben Bruss last week, a banner year, reflecting on the first of 2 Final Four teams from Wisconsin. Frank Kaminsky and Sam Dekker are both in Europe. Those were both lottery picks, right? So
Nigel Hayes dropping a 50 burger.
I saw that. Yeah. So I mean, a bunch of these great collegiate players end up over there. There's some really good competition and good leagues over there, and you can make a good living doing that. So I'm excited to see what's next for Jack Gohlke, and hopefully he continues to bring in a couple of those NIL deals over the course of the next couple of weeks, because it's been cool to see, right? Like mid-majors, and you and I are big mid-major fans. That's now our second Horizon League guest we've had on this show. Coach of the Year, by the way, National Coach of the Year, Sonny Wicks won an award over the weekend from UW Green Bay. Friend of show.
Are we the official show of the Horizon League? We've had 2 guests now.
Here's the issue. I just don't know if there's a lot of competition. I don't know if that
Who cares? We're still first place.
But I don't know if that says more about us or if that says more about the Horizon League. Take that as you will. But I don't know who that says more about.
I think it says more about us because we appreciate the mid-majors. We give them love. It's well-deserved. They work hard. And everyone else needs to step up their Horizon League game.
No, that's fair. Yeah. I challenge every show on ESPN Wisconsin to pay more damn attention to the Horizon League.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk Packers a little bit, because I had this thought over the weekend, Hunter. Because we threw a lot of words around ahead of the NFL draft a year ago. So about this time last year, we were still in the midst of the Aaron Rodgers. The trade hadn't been finalized yet, but we were still operating under the idea that he would play for the New York Jets, which he ultimately did for 3 plays, but the trade ultimately ended up happening. And we viewed it in terms of a rebuild. And ultimately, I just don't think if you're a playoff team, you can call it a rebuild. However, I'm starting to change my tune on that because I think it is a rebuild. Like as David Bakhtiari put it a year ago, anytime you move on from a Hall of Fame quarterback, it's a rebuild. No matter if you're great, no matter if you're solid, no matter if you're okay, no matter if you're bad, you're rebuilding. And the Houston Texans are the team that popped into my head when we used the term rebuild because they went from 3 wins to a playoff team. And like the Packers, I viewed the parallels among them a lot throughout the end of the regular season and into the postseason. Okay, these were teams that didn't make the playoffs a year ago. They make changes at the quarterback position, and they have a bunch of young pieces offensively. And both of them get into the playoffs. They both win their wild card game and seemingly have very bright futures with new franchise quarterbacks in C.J. Stroud and Jordan Love, respectively. So I just think it is a credit to Brian Gutekunst and the front office staff of the Packers, the stability that they've had for 3 decades now, that when you make a ginormous transition like you did a year ago from Aaron Rodgers, but also you eliminate pretty much every veteran piece offensively and bring in a ton of rookies, a tight end, a wide receiver, and somehow that translates to winning 9 games, smoking the 2nd seed in the NFC in the playoffs, Hunter, in the Dallas Cowboys, and having the number 1 seeded San Francisco 49ers on the ropes in the divisional round, unable to pull off that game, but it looked like you almost were going to. I just think it speaks to the stability and the genius, and I'm ready to use that word, of Brian Gutekunst. And I know like everybody will have their special glasses on for the solar eclipse here in a couple of minutes. I have my green and gold colored glasses on when it comes to Goody, but I just have blind faith in him at this point because what he pulled off last year is impossible for 30 other NFL franchises. Look at the Patriots. They were the gold standard for how long in the NFL under Bill Belichick, and they just can't get it to work with Mac Jones at quarterback, and they ultimately come to the decision to move on from Bill Belichick this offseason. It's not easy to stay as relevant as the Packers have the last 3 decades. And somehow, again, last year, they find a way to do it. But that leads to this offseason because there still are some holes and there still are some question marks. And with the NFL draft less than 3 weeks away, it's more and more in my brain of, okay, can Goody do it again? I have faith he can hit on a couple of the spots, especially in year 1 and year 2. But can he have as great of a draft as he had last year with that many guys contributing that early? I want to say yes. I just think it's so hard to do because if you look at last year's draft and think about how many guys actually contributed early, like Lucas Van Ness, the first-round pick, I don't think he was a huge contributor. He had some nice plays. But I more look at the Anthony Johnson Jr., the Carrington Valentine in the late rounds. And then you have guys like Carl Brooks who had some really nice flashes in the middle rounds. And then obviously Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. All of those guys I just named contributed pretty extensively, especially toward the end of the regular season. I just have no idea if Goody can do it again at linebacker and at safety and some cornerback depth and offensive line depth that they desperately need in the draft coming up in a couple of weeks. So as much of a rebuild and retool as the Packers succeeded with a year ago, I've just been in my own head this weekend, and I'm rarely pessimistic or negative when it comes to the Packers. I'm just wondering, can they do it again in the 2024 NFL draft? Because what Goody did a year ago, I want to call it unprecedented, but we saw the Texans do it too with the receivers they had on that staff. And obviously winning, or 2 of their players winning both the offensive and defensive rookie of the year, and winning a playoff game coming off the 3-win season. The Packers no longer are viewed as an underdog. They're now viewed as a team that can legitimately compete in the NFC North and can legitimately compete for an NFC championship. Jordan Love is viewed as one of the top 8 or 5 best quarterbacks in the league. He's top 5 in MVP odds this upcoming season. So now that the expectations are higher, is this thing a foregone conclusion that the Packers are not pretenders but true contenders in the NFC? That's the question I wonder, and I definitely don't have the answer to quite yet. Hunter, am I overreacting? Am I getting too in my own head as we lead up to the NFL draft in a couple of weeks?
Part of me wants to say no, you're not, because of the draft last year. But I just keep thinking about how many GMs regularly will have like one or two good drafts, and then they've got some really bad ones. You know, you mentioned I am a Cowboys fan for anyone watching in Milwaukee who hasn't tuned into the show before. And, you know, they have Taco Charlton, first-round draft
Such
picks.
a great name, by the way.
It was. He was just never a even okay player.
Oh, that's true.
And
Just a great name.
that's just the way that it works, though, is that if you're a GM, you're getting really bad drafts and you're going to have really good ones. If he can follow up this last draft with another even average or good draft, you're talking about Goody being potentially like a Hall of Fame level GM just because of what that's going to do with this already really good Packers team, to where, okay, they make a run, he gets, with the pieces he brought in, he gets them into a Super Bowl, and he's going into the Hall of Fame, because that's just the way GMs are, is no one remembers those really bad drafts as long as you hit on Jordan Love and you get a couple of other really good players, potentially somehow somebody is somehow a Hall of Fame level player, and suddenly you're one of the greatest GMs ever. All it takes is two guys at that spot in an organization, and suddenly you're one of the GOATs.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I mean, it'll remain to be seen what Jordan Love ultimately is. I don't know that many people are as high on Jordan Love as I am, right? Like I was ready to write his ticket to the Hall of Fame week 1 of last year after a nice performance.
After you said he was going to win the MVP by beating the Bears.
Okay, now it was the debut episode of the show when we still used the whiteboard way back when. And I wrote my notes that you now see on the right side of the screen on a whiteboard. And after week 1 of the season, Jordan Love was leading the MVP race. Statistically, he was the best quarterback in the NFL. And it's a quarterback award. I know how silly it sounds, and I thought it sounded silly at the time. But after the first week of the season, Jordan Love was leading the MVP race. And now look at what all the odds makers say. They say, hey, Strouf is a damn genius because he's number 5 in MVP odds for this year.
They're not saying you're a genius because of what you said in week 1. They're saying that Jordan Love has earned that based off of the totality of a season, not one performance against a terrible defense.
But if you look at the totality of the season, he had a really crappy October. There were points early on in the season, or actually midway through the season, where I was scratching my head saying, I don't know if he's the guy. I don't know if we did it again. And then all of a sudden, November, December, January rolls around. It's like, holy crap, they did it again. So, yeah, I think that'll be interesting to watch, you know, if he's able to piece together the entirety of a really solid season after what was a terrific second half. I think he has the it factor, but it took him a couple of years to develop that behind Aaron Rodgers. And obviously that's a beneficial spot, right? Sitting behind a first ballot Hall of Famer is ultimately going to help you in the long run. And I saw a picture from them over the weekend as they were playing in a charity flag football game together, arm in arm in the picture, right next to each other. Rodgers and Love. They maintain a solid relationship, as much of a kook as Aaron Rodgers is. So there you go.
Better than 4-12.
Yes.
It took them a while.
Yeah, it did. It did take them a while. You're right. That was Rodgers' first year, right? 4-12 as the starter?
No, I was saying number 4 and number 12's relationship.
Oh. Well, I think that was a 5-11. Rodgers' first year wasn't very good record-wise.
Well,
so.
yeah, and I was just saying that
But
Rodgers'
4 and
relationship
12
with
Rodgers. I got you. I got you.
took you a bit.
It did. I got there. I'm kind of an idiot. We've established this
Kind of.
before. But I saw a question pop across on TikTok, and I know he isn't actually a sophomore because it's his 5th season. But somebody asking, do you think Love hits the sophomore slump? And I'm a firm believer in you typically don't stay standard your sophomore year, and this applies to a lot of the other pieces on the offense. Is you either make the sophomore jump or you take a sophomore slump. And I think there are some pieces that are due for a slump. As much as I hate to say it, one of those tight ends is going to regress, probably at least statistically. Jaden Reed, is he able to take what he did a year ago and elevate that to another level? I sure hope so. But is it a given? I don't know. Carrington Valentine defensively?
I think he's the winner. If you're going to say of a slump, I think Jaden Reed is going to take a step up.
I hope so.
Just because the way they used him, like they were intentionally going out of their way to get him the ball. Matt LaFleur is a good enough offensive mind that he's going to force that and figure out ways to get him involved in every game.
Yeah, you're right about that. We will talk more Packers coming up later in the week as we get ready for the NFL draft coming up in a couple of weeks. But I want to move on to the Milwaukee Bucks because they have now regressed, speaking of regression, have regressed back to pre-All-Star levels. They have lost 4 in a row. There are 4 games remaining in the regular season for the Bucks. 2 against the Magic, a playoff team, 1 against the Celtics, the best team in the East, and 1 against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are only a game back of the Western Conference first seed. They're technically number 3 in the West right now. So not an easy schedule to round out the regular season for the Milwaukee Bucks. We've done this several times throughout the course of the regular season, dating back all the way to when Adrian Griffin was still the head coach of this team. Hunter, I'll ask you in a minute where your panic meter is at on a scale from 1 to 10. This is not good. I am officially ready to hit the panic button. I've been chill the whole season. I said, yeah, they're good enough. They'll figure it out. But they can't hit a slump like this. 4 games left. The regular season ends next Sunday. This ain't good. Or this Sunday, I think the regular season ends. This is not good. 4 games left in the regular season. Playoffs start soon. And they're playing the worst basketball they have since the All-Star break. It seems like Doc Rivers has lost control and maybe respect, just like Adrian Griffin did. The defense has regressed back to horrible levels. The 3-point shots aren't falling the way they have been. Each of those losses, they've allowed over 110 points. I'm at a 6. I don't think they lose in the first round, but they could. What did I say? Only like 2.5 games separate they're currently the 2 seed still, but only 2.5 games separate them from the 6 seed. And again, 3 of those 4 games remaining, 2 against the Magic, 1 against the Celtics, are against teams that are in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. So that games that separate, that line is very, very thin. That ice is very thin for the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm at a 6 out of 10. Hunter, where are you at?
I'm at a 0.
What?
I've disassociated from the team. I just can't. They lost to the Raptors. The Raptors are
And
outwardly
Wizards.
trying to lose games.
Yep.
Like,
And the
I'm just done.
Grizzlies.
There's no reason they should be losing that game. Like, I'm over it. I'm on to baseball. I just can't. It's not worth it. I've had too much pain this year as a sports fan to just do it again. So I'm done. I don't care.
Wizards, Grizzlies, Raptors, back to back to back. They lost to them.
Pathetic.
Yeah, that's really bad. And I know they were without Giannis. I think it was that Raptors game.
Doesn't matter. They're still a better roster.
Yeah, but you can't put a ton of stock into a game without Giannis.
They're
I
a
am a firm
team
believer in
trying to lose Strouf.
I understand that.
Like, come on. And they lost by 6. Like, it's so bad. They're just a bad team.
Yeah,
and I'm just done. I just don't want to do it.
So clearly you haven't disassociated as much as you claim to. Do you think they lose in the first round?
Absolutely. They're going to get Miami. They're going to get swept.
Okay.
It won't even be a gentleman's sweep.
Like it was
it's
last
going
year?
to be 40-point beatdowns because Jimmy Butler, as soon as it becomes the playoffs, he becomes Himmy Butler, and it's just going to be awful. And I hate it, and that's why I'm over it. I'm done. I'm on to baseball. Christian Yelich is back. Let's go.
That's a fact. He is. He is indeed back. Nice win yesterday. A little bit prettier than the loss they took on Saturday when I was there, but neither here nor there for the Brewers. I just don't know what to do with Doc. I don't think you could fire him.
No shot.
You can't pay 4 head coaches going into next season because you're still paying Budenholzer. You're still paying Griffin. You'd be paying Rivers, who signed, I think, a 3-year deal. They're just not a scary team like they should be. Right? You have Giannis, Dame, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez. On paper, that to me is, oh boy, that's championship recipe. And now they lose 4 in a row, 3 of which are those horrible teams we just mentioned. Wizards, Raptors, Raptors. Who am I missing in there now? That they lost to. That's horrible. Grizzlies. So, they got to get a couple wins here in their last 4. They got to beat some playoff teams in order to give me any sort of confidence. But yeah, I'm with you because they could go 1-3 here, fall to the 5 seed, and then have to visit Cleveland.
Ugh.
And I don't like their chances there. I don't really like their chances against anybody because as it stands right now, they're the 2 seed, and they've clinched a playoff spot despite the loss last night. But they're only a game up on Orlando for the 2 seed. And again, 2 of their last 4 games are against Orlando, so that could easily flip-flop very quickly. But let's just say they stay the 2 seed. They'd have to play one of these 2 teams in the first round. Philadelphia, who's got a healthy Joel Embiid back, or Miami, whoever wins the 7-8 matchup in the play-in tournament, if the playoffs started today. I don't like their matchups against either of those teams. So I do not like the Bucks' chances as it stands right now. But let's just say, for the sake of the argument, they go 4-0. They beat the Celtics, they beat the Magic both times, they beat the Thunder. Similarly to how they started out of the All-Star break, where they beat the Thunder and they beat the Wolves. Maybe you like your chances then. I don't know. But I'm at a 6 out of 10. We'll check back in on this later in the week. All right, double whammy for what Strouf learned as we wrap up the show. A couple of things from over the weekend. Actually, triple whammy for what Strouf learned. A couple of things from over the weekend. I haven't even mentioned WrestleMania yet. Aren't you proud of me?
You don't have to.
But you should be proud of me.
I am, but you really don't have to.
I'm just saying this. You say Christian Yelich is back. So is John Cena. All right, that's one. All right, number 2, Bo Ryan will be inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame after he was officially voted in over the weekend, and obviously long overdue. Terrific track record coaching at NAIA level, Division III level, Division I level, UW Milwaukee, UW Madison, back-to-back Final Fours a decade ago for the Badgers. It's long overdue, but Bo Ryan headed to the Hall of Fame. So that is what I learned, number 1, over the weekend. He'll be inducted in mid-August alongside 12 other inductees. What I learned, number 3, is actually what Hunter learned. And we enjoy a good tinfoil hat on this show.
Yeah.
We've thrown a tinfoil hat on or two in our day. And Hunter, you sent me an article from Forbes, I believe, or Business Insider, one of the two. I'm looking at the Forbes article. And so there was an earthquake in New York and New Jersey area over the weekend. I think it was on Friday. And today is the solar eclipse. First one in 7 years, last one in the contiguous U.S. for 20 years. Next one will be in 2044. There are studies going around that say solar eclipses may cause earthquakes. And we are currently in Madison and Milwaukee in the midst of like the best time for the solar eclipse. I think it's about 2 o'clock coming up that the best time will be. And you're supposed to wear protective eye gear. I'm not a doctor, so I'm just going to say, hey, if you go look at it, wear protective eye gear. Forgot my sunglasses today. We'll see what I end up wearing.
Yeah, don't wear just sunglasses.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah, they make special glasses for watching an eclipse. Don't just wear your sunglasses.
Okay, now I must admit, I wore like Dollar Tree flower glasses in 2017. I have a picture of that somewhere. That didn't work very well, but my eyes felt fine.
Shocking.
But they felt fine. Is
Yeah.
that a bad idea?
Yeah, because you're staring at a giant ball of gas in the sky that is burning at billions of degrees. Like, of course that's a bad idea, Strouf.
Is it always a bad idea?
Yes.
Okay. Noted.
Oh my God.
Hey, you learn something new every day, remember?
But
so what does the correlation with earthquakes have to do? I read the article. I still don't really get it.
So it's
has
that
to
the
do with the
moon,
moon?
yeah,
Okay.
the moon, along with being a part of what causes the tides. The moon also, they're finding, because of how big it is and how close it is to the Earth, it does also affect earthquakes. So then that extra push and pull with the gravitational pull of the moon can also, they've found, affect the crust of our Earth, which then can cause some earthquakes.
Do you buy it?
I mean, from what they've said on here, these geologists are like, yeah, there's like with where the moon is positioned and where earthquakes can happen, like there's an effect that it has, which would make, like, I don't know, it makes sense to me. It isn't enough where I'm like, oh, the world's going to end or anything weird like that, and the eclipse isn't going to do anything weird.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, I didn't realize that the moon would have that effect on our planet.
If you didn't work in sports media, you'd be a really good history teacher.
That's what I originally went to school at UW River Falls for before I had a .94 GPA and was asked to not go back to school.
How do you even accomplish that? A .94, just not going to class?
Yeah, not going to class, a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
It was bad. I was not a good student my first try.
Shout out River Falls. Shout out WIAC. All right. I feel for Joshie DiMaggio, who I'm hoping will text me momentarily, because I'm going to ask him this question. Anybody that was along with us today, do you feel stupider now than you did 50 minutes ago? Because I certainly do. It's one of those days. I spilled coffee everywhere this morning, Hunter. It's just
What?
Case of the Mondays. It happens. All right. Big thanks to Jack Gohlke. Big thanks to Josh DiMaggio. Big thanks to Tiny Hands for helping us out today, as always. I hope my brain cells are better Wednesday. We'll be in better shape for Wednesday as we wrap up the college basketball season. Enjoy the college hoops tonight. UConn-Purdue national championship game. I think UConn wins big. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe Zach Edey can get it done, unlike Caitlin Clark, the two biggest stars in college basketball the last couple of years. We'll be back with you Wednesday at 12:30, wrapping up the college basketball season, looking ahead to the NFL draft a bit with you here on ESPN Milwaukee, YouTube, on ESPN Madison, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, ESPN Madison, TikTok as well. Thanks for hanging with us today. We'll talk to you Wednesday. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Peace.